What's up, guys? I'm here live at the historic Ward Rooming House. We're here in Miami at Art Basel.
In
Overtown. This is one of the partners.
Imani Greene. Nice
Imani
to meet
Greene.
you all.
She has a very interesting story about how this all came about. So if you could just explain a little bit just about the background.
It'd be my pleasure. So welcome to a space that we love, a space that we're passionate about. We would want you all to come in here, but by nature of watching us, you're here with us. My name is Imani Greene. As I mentioned, I represent a group called Hampton Art Lovers. It was founded by myself and two of my fellow Hampton alum, Chris Norwood, who you'll hear from soon, and Daryl Neverson. And the reason we founded it is because we know that as a community, much of our legacy Black art, and usually the finest pieces, are sort of locked away in the museums of the HBCUs. And oftentimes, those are not the first places that you think to go. If you're going to visit Hampton University or Clark Atlanta, you'll go on campus and you'll check out all the things, but you're really missing out on an opportunity to have to experience some of the most precious gems we have as a community. So generationally, we've sort of lost the appreciation for art. In the Harlem Renaissance era, it was you was really saying something. If you were doing good things and big things, you had amazing works on your wall. When those people died, sometimes they would leave them to their kids, or sometimes they would, find other ways, maybe sell them. But more often than not, oftentimes people would bequeath those to the HBCU that they went to. They would bequeath it to Howard University, and I keep plugging Hampton. And so they have some of the finest collections in the world. In fact, Hampton University Museum is the oldest Black African American museum and has boundless collections of pieces that have infinite value. That said, what we wanted to do as a group, the Hampton Art Lovers, was really create an opportunity for these works to be shown where people are coming to collect art, where they're coming to be inspired by art. And of course, that's here at Art Basel. So about 3 or 4 years ago, we started this group, Hampton Art Lovers, and with the goal of being able to bring a collection from an HBCU to every single Art Basel, to specifically Miami. Last year was our first year actually producing it, and we've done so with in partnership with the city of Overtown, which has been incredibly gracious by giving us this facility to house the collections. We operate this building year round, by the way. Okay. So it's not just for Basel, but these collections are Basel. So last year we had the collections of, we're talking about Elizabeth Catlett, John Biggers, some really incredible works. This year we will have Spelman College Museum. Their works will be here hopefully within the next few weeks. So if you happen to be traveling to Miami or you're local to Miami, you will not want to miss this. The other thing that's important to do is to make sure that there's visibility for the artists that are emerging. So we have about 15 artists here that are whose works are being showcased, and I'm sure you're going to get a chance to be talked through this. Hopefully Chris will give you some of the tour as well. We always make it a priority to include some works from fellow Hamptonians who are making who are using art as a way to make their business, as a business and a way to make a living. So you'll see the works of Philip Shung and Musa Hickson and Buck as you work your way out into the tent. And that's probably good for starters, right?
Yeah,
good
that's
enough
great.
overview?
Yeah.
Good enough intro?
Just wanted to give the people just
What
a
they were looking
tidbit
for?
about what you're doing. I
What
love that piece that you said about, bringing everything here from the HBCs so
Yes.
people can just come and appreciate the
Yeah.
art. And how you were saying that, like, if you were doing something, you had artwork. It was a part of the culture.
Right.
It wasn't,
Right.
just outsourced.
So the name of this is Point Comfort, and I'm going to let Chris talk about that a little bit later, but one of the most important priorities for us is to uncover and discover,
Okay.
right? So you'll see that probably written everywhere where we have language up, because we want you to uncover things that have already been done. We want you to learn about the history of Charles White and these all these amazing artists who have sort of blazed the path before us. But then we also want you to be able to find, appreciate, and buy Black art. We had one of the most renowned. She blows my mind. We had Bisa Butler here yesterday. Do you know her?
No.
at Bisa Butler. At Bisa Butler.
Gotcha.
At Bisa Butler. We had her yesterday for a talk, and the way that she concluded her talk, Chris asked, he sort of narrated the conversation, and he said, how do you want to, like, what do you want to leave people thinking about? And she said something to the effect, and this is a loose interpretation, but something to the effect of my works and our works are being bought. We created them for you, though. So if you don't have them, then you're the one who's not harnessing your art, because everyone else is. So you can read into that interpretation what you will. So the intention is absolutely to make Black art a part of everyone's life. So in our collection, we have everything from this gentleman, Basil Watson's, these sculptures that you see here, which we'll get to later. We have, pieces that are in the tens of thousands of dollars, but we also have prints by Ernie Barnes, who I'm sure you all know as the sort of silent author of the works that J.J. Evans was drawing in Good Times. We have prints from his estate that they send us to make sure that, for $24, we have books for $12. So the idea is that everyone can afford to have Black art in their homes, and particularly where you have kids, you want to make sure that those kids are seeing themselves represented in beautiful ways around your home as well. So those are important priorities for us.
Definitely. Love everything you're saying. So this is a part of the Hampton Art Lovers.
What I want you to do is to get a tour of this from Chris Norwood.
Okay.
I think it will be worth seeing and worth waiting for. He's on the line. He's on the phone.
Okay.
In a few minutes.
Definitely.
And there's 50 more works outside.
Okay.
Yeah, in the 10. And we've had programming all week. We're beat. We're so tired.
Yeah, I bet. I know.
But we've had artist talks. We had Michael Eric Dyson here.
Wow.
He did a book signing. He did a reading. He had his nephew Everett Dyson, who is the illustrator for the book. He was here, was part of the talk, and we commissioned some custom posters, and they signed them, and we've got proofs that are also for sale. So yeah, we've had art. We featured, of course, our artists that are here today that are being represented. Gil Ashby, Crystal Hart, whose work is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. That's another story. I'll come back to that story when Chris gives you the tour. So we've had them, being able to speak and give people an understanding of what inspires them and, what they care about and what it actually takes to create the art, so that you can get smarter about it and thus be, increasingly more sophisticated about how to buy stuff for your home.
That's the whole purpose of the podcast. We're trying to demystify the stigmas of like how intimidating the art world can be.
Then we have the exact same mission.
Yeah.
We have the exact same mission.
Yeah. This is the name of it. Art for Evolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Art for Hampton Art Lovers and Art for Evolution. We're trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. Peace.
A space that begins, where humanity will be as the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
You also almost kind of have to wonder how there's an abstract collection as part of that discussion.
Yeah.
This, first of all, she's just a brilliant artist, and she was in a car accident that was so awful that when you look at the wreckage, there's no way you can understand how she survived. I mean, the car was almost flat as a pancake and was ripped to shreds. She was hit by a semi, and ripped the hood off the car. Like it was debilitating illness. It took her 5 years to even be able to go to work again. And so her collections, this particular collection, is really about the rebirth, the trauma itself, and the progressive rebirth of Crystal Hart and what she saw and what she's experienced, and even the materials that she uses in these, which is a really complex list. includes Sumi ink, which is an ink that you literally have to destroy in order for it to be rebuilt and then present itself in the way that you're seeing it now.
Yeah.
This orangish or rustish color comes from the soil, North Carolina soil, where she actually, where the accident happened.
Yeah.
So she's got pieces here and then smaller pieces here and then several out in the tent as well.
Okay. It's an amazing story.
Yeah, she's dope.
So my name is Christopher Norwood. I am one of the founders of Hampton Art Lovers. We are a fine art organization focusing on curating gallery spaces, curating fairs. We have an art gallery here in Miami called the Historic War Rooming House. And what we're in now is an 80 by 40 tent we built in our backyard for Point Comfort Art Fair and Show. And Point Comfort Art Fair and Show was our intended effort to create a panoramic experience during Art Basel. This is our second installation. Last year was our first. And Point Comfort, the word comes from the place in Virginia where the first African slaves arrived in 1619. And so this is the 400th year commemoration of that, but also it's the 400th year commemoration, in our view, of African American art. Good or bad, African American art began on that day in late August when 20 Africans set foot in Point Comfort, Virginia. And so it's an ironic kind of word, but that is the beginning of African American art as we know it.
Wow.
You need me to do anything?
Okay.
So, our introduction, this is like our introductory wall. We curated this wall for a very specific reason, utilizing various artists. As discussed, Point Comfort is a very ironic name to use for our art fair, but for the previous reasons is why we chose to do that. But I think it speaks to the fact that we've made comfort out of so little. As a black community, we have made homes out of dirt. And so this wall sort of expresses that aesthetic. This is called Overtown Alley by Marvin Weeks, a local artist. This is a depiction of a neighborhood that once existed in Miami, and it's a row of shotgun houses. And as most of us know, shotgun houses were a vernacular architecture that was used to house black folk, really right after slavery, as a quick way to have housing for folk who needed it. And they were houses that you could literally, see from the porch through out the back door, and you could shoot a shotgun straight through it without touching a wall, because there was no real hallway. It was just room after room after room, and then outside. And so, and this gentleman made this out of leaves. So he took the leaves from the same neighborhood that these homes once existed, because they don't exist anymore. But that same earth that these houses sat on, he took that same earth and the same leaves and created this painting. And this is all leaves, and some of it is made, the resin of the leaves are utilized in the painting as well. And then he puts like a liqueur gloss over it. And that's very indicative of the style that he's been doing for a few years now. But again, a neighborhood, a home out of what some people would call substandard housing. This is Joe Grissom, an artist based here now with roots here, but spent most of his career in Atlanta. This is called Windows of Opportunity, where these three little girls are looking out of their brick building out into the world of their home, looking out into the world for opportunity. This piece here is this is an exhibition poster from a very famous painting by Faith Ringo done in 1988 called Tar Beach. Many people know it as a children's book because it became a children's book after it was published. But the book is, the painting is a storybook quilt, as you can see. And it is telling the story of this little girl who's flying around Manhattan while her parents are chilling out, playing cards, they're drinking and chilling. And up north, sometimes we would call the rooftop the beach, the Tar Beach. You know, they don't have, you know, we don't, I'm originally from New Jersey. We don't have, well, we do have beaches in the shore, but those beaches seem more farther away than Miami to people in Newark. But we would make the rooftop our place to chill out, you know, visit with nature, and so on and so forth. So this is an exhibition. This is the original exhibition poster when this painting came out in 1988. It was immediately purchased by the Guggenheim, and Denise Steinbaum gallery was a very famous gallery in New York City and very revolutionary. It showed, for many years, she showed, her gallery was 50% women artists shown and 40% women of color. And at that time, and maybe even today, that was somewhat radical. There's a Miami connection here. We all know, those of us who visit Miami, or those of your viewers who may visit Miami, have heard about the Wynwood, the fabulous murals, and the artistic district that it has become over the past 20 years, or less really, over the past, I would say 10 years maybe. But Denise Steinbaum was the first commercial art gallery in Miami. She moved from New York around 2000 and then moved here and opened up the first commercial art gallery in Wynwood. Essentially, she set it off, you know. But again, making a home, a rooftop, into a place to chill with your family. This is John Biggers. John Biggers is a very famous African-American artist from Houston, Texas. He's the first African-American artist to spend a substantial amount of time in Africa in the early 1950s. He received a UNESCO grant to do that. And his artwork is focused exclusively, many times, around African symbols and mythological symbols. This is an original exhibition poster, as that one is, original exhibition poster for his retrospective that was done many, many years ago. He has since passed away. But both of these posters are signed by the artist. In fact, they're in a collection that we have called Ebony Broadsides, which is our permanent collection of historical exhibition posters of artists. So we have about 60 original exhibition posters of historical black artists, all hand signed by them. We believe it's a very unique collection of art. And it's a traveling exhibition. It was in Detroit, actually, for Detroit Art Week. It is now back here, and we're taking it to the African American Cultural Center in Broward County for another 3-month run. Art exhibition posters are very important because it establishes a space and time for an event. And some people who are not into fine art, they are very much into posters. We all relate to posters. And sometimes we don't realize that that is in fact collecting art. When we're young and we put things on our wall because we want to see them every day, there's something, whether it's an entertainer, a rapper, or R&B singer, whatever it is, you're putting something on your wall that you want to be inspired by every day. There's no difference than somebody spending $100,000 on a painting. Yeah. There's absolutely no difference. The person who does that sees something that they literally want to see every day because it inspires them. And so we use the posters to introduce, especially young people, especially new collectors, that this is art as well, because it is a very reasonable cost, because the artwork is embedded within the poster. And people can relate more when there's writing on it, you know what I'm saying? But the unique part about our exhibition posters is that they're signed by the artist, and we start in the 1950s. So we have Romare Bearden signed posters from his first art exhibition that he did, well, the first first display of black art in the MoMA in 1971, I believe, with Richard Hunt, who's from Chicago. Richard Hunt, who has several sculptures in that community, who went to the Art Institute of Chicago. So Romare Bearden's first sort of coming out party for his collages that he's known for was through an art exhibition called The Prevalence of Ritual. And so we have the original that exhibition poster in our collection, hand signed by him. Moving along in this whole theme about home and how African American communities and many immigrant communities have this ability to create home out of nothing. This is a church home. you know. And this is Leroy Campbell, who we've been featuring here. And this appears to be a grandfather of his son and his grandson. What's beautiful about this piece, obviously, is that the stained glass window is real. It's embedded. It's embedded within the painting itself. It's extraordinary, the detail that he's able to do. This is Smoke Neck Bone number 3. This is, he's known for a series of paintings called Neck Bone. This is Ernie Barnes. Ernie Barnes is, of course, the grand master of black art. He has the most recognizable image of black art was and is Sugar Shack. Yeah. And most people know it from the credits of Good Times. But it was also the cover of Marvin Gaye's What's Going On album. A lot of people don't recognize that is an actual painting. They may think when I say it's the most recognizable piece of black art, when I ask somebody what's the most recognizable piece of black art, they won't say Sugar Shack. And I say, you know who it is? And they say, what are you talking about? You know exactly what the most recognizable image of black culture is, to be quite honest. And like, no, I don't know. And all I have to say is Good Times, and it immediately comes to them, oh, you mean the painting, the image that, it's like that was actually a painting. And that's Ernie Barnes. So anyway, Ernie Barnes did this painting right before 9/11. He was doing a painting on homelessness, and then 9/11 happened, and then he changed the whole palette of the painting and made it a painting about the patriotism of homeless people. And this is depicting a scene after the World Trade Center where, we've all had these images of all this iron and steel all over the place. And this is what this is depicting with these homeless people, saluting the flag, holding the flag, and so on and so forth. This painting was was bought by a very wealthy horse track owner in the Pennsylvania area, I believe. And then him and Ernie Barnes got together and decided to reproduce it in 100 limited edition G-clays on paper and sell them for $1,000 a piece. And they used that to raise $100,000 for, I believe, a scholarship fund for firefighters in Philadelphia. We bookend this wall, this very important wall, with another artist from Miami, from Overtown. Whereas that piece right there is depicting a scene in Overtown. This is one of the most famous artists from Miami. This is Purvis Young, collected by many museums now. This is actually, I believe, the image that spearheaded him into the art world on a national level back in the mid-90s. He did this as a commemorative poster for the Olympics in Atlanta in 1996. Back in the day, it doesn't happen anymore, but there used to be something called the Cultural Olympiad, which was an event that was analogous to the Olympics every 4 years. So there would be obviously the Olympic Games, and then there was like a Cultural Olympics that took place. The Olympic Committee has since stopped that. But this was, a part of that was a display of an art collection by William Arnett. And he has this amazing collection of what some people call outsider art. And he showed the exhibition. It's called Souls Grown Deep, African American Vernacular Art of the South. And this painting now sits in, this original painting now sits in the Met. It was donated by William Arnett to the Met in 2014. And again, this is hand signed by Purvis Young. As we move through the gallery, I want to just focus on this wall because this is kind of like our featured wall. We start off with Musa Hickson. Musa Hickson is from Brooklyn, New York, a sculptor, mixed medium artist. This is called Homeland Security. When Musa heard about our theme for our fair, he immediately thought that this piece, even though it's an older piece that he's done and still had, he thought this would best fit what we were trying to do. He did this piece around the time that the Homeland Security department was still growing, and he felt that that department would be kind of what it is today. That it was not about protecting us, that it became a way of locking us in and locking us out. And we see that played out so often with, the data exchanges that we see with all of our computer data that now has been legalized as somehow appropriate for national security reasons. So that's Musa Hickson, and these are two other pieces by him as well. This one is called Word is Bond, and it's a very interesting street piece. Actually, it's very clean, red, black, and green, but with these nails that are very provocative and very, very persistent in a lot of African art, where you tap a nail and put something on it for a particular purpose. Over here we have Leroy Campbell. Leroy's colorful artist. These collages that he do are very reminiscent of, people like Romare Bearden. This is called Race Matters, which is about African American voting, which reminds me so much of several Jacob Lawrence prints of the same theme. And then embedded within here are various connotations relating to blacks voting. Just a very powerful piece, I believe. This is a remarked version of this limited edition print, which means that, as a limited edition print, hand signed by the artist, a remark just means that the artist actually did touch this himself. And he did that by putting this particular collage, which you can see is on top of this print. Yeah, and this, of course, these prints are well, this one is a print. This is an original painting, but I'm going to draw your attention to this one here. You know what? We're going to go here. This is Give and Take. Give and Take is a piece really discussing a charity. How the purpose of charity and how easy sometimes the give and take is in unconscious ways. So when you're sitting at a dinner table, and even with people you don't know, but if you're all sitting together, the way those plates pass from people to people is done in a very altruistic way most times. I mean, you want something, here you go, let's pass it along. Let's pass it along. You want something, you want me to pass it to you, here you go, you need it. But you know what I mean? So in so many different ways, when you're sitting at a table, a round table, and you're passing that food, there's a lot of things happening that we don't take into our conscious world about giving and taking. You don't always take. You have to give and share and put things in the middle so everybody can touch it and have access to it and pass it along. And that's what this piece is depicting. This right here is the featured piece. That's why it's in the middle. You'll see it goes down from here, and it was curated that way on purpose. Because I too believe that this is the most powerful piece of his collection, and this is called The Collector. You see a lady here reading a book, one of the many books she has on her shelves, and it says "Well-Read Black Girl." But you see embedded within this are the pictures and collages of some of the most historic and well-known black artists. So you have Elizabeth Catlett, you have Romare Bearden, you have Carrie J. Marshall, you have Jacob Lawrence, you have Faith Ringgold, Augusta Savage, you have John Biggers, Norman Lewis, the artist of this painting, Leroy Campbell, and Faith Ringgold. Again, I believe that's Palmer Hayden right there. It's an incredible collage of black art. But then you got the actual library. These are very well-known books about black art. For your listeners or viewers, these are books that they may want to read, and so it's embedded within the actual painting. And then over here you have Mr. Campbell did a series and continues to do a series of paintings of unboxing gems, and I interpret that as, he creates these narratives about, preparing yourself mentally, boxing mentally, not with your hands but with your mind, but remembering that you are in a boxing match, And so this one is called "You Are Not a Slave." and it looks like a mother teaching her daughter and her children that, and with a boxing bag that says you are not afraid, and instructing them to provide that sort of self-confidence within them. And in the background, you have many different words by Muhammad Ali, tickets for various fights, and so on and so forth. And all of the kids are wearing big shoes, as if to say they got big shoes to fill. It's a very powerful piece for me. This one as well, with that same theme of being in a boxing gym. In this case, the young man is sweeping negativity. When you read these individual things, police state, poverty, this menace, race war, sexual assault, and then you have over here pain, sing pain to relieve pain.